Now. Well, hello and welcome to the community of the Holy Spirit. Host Kirby Clements Jr. There we are. I will say this early. I will say it often that whenever I am up against a deadline, look at my orange socks and blue pants. I got the clown outfit going today. But okay. I got the Columbia colors with the black shoes. So I'm a fashion statement today. I have been everywhere. I was trying to compose a sermon and working in my car at Growers Outlet in Loganville, Georgia today, because Suzette had to go. Because while I was here to deliver the word of the Lord, she wanted to receive some banana plants. So there I sat. That sermon is at home on my bed. It was incomplete. It was disjointed, and I had all kind of stories in there. And I just, at the end of it, I couldn't figure out what my point was. I mean, I knew what my point was going in, but for some odd reason, I forgot it. And I figured if I forgot it and it wasn't communicated effectively to me in my notes, I would not be able to deliver it to you with any level of competence. So I threw that away. And I ate some Jamaican food. And so you're about to get the Jamaican food blessing here. Now, let's just talk about the day and how I arrived at where I have arrived at. My sister and I went to a conference, a business conference. We were in Denver, Colorado. It snowed. It was freezing. It was cold. 80 degrees in Georgia. 2 hours and some change later, I was in the snow. That is not a thing that I recommend for anybody. Which leads me to my topic. Disappointment is my topic of my sermon today. Disappointment. I was not disappointed with being in the snow because I enjoyed the snow. I just didn't enjoy the snow with no hat. So I paid $22 at a gift shop for a Colorado hat, which I could have gotten for $3 at the Target down the street had I had a hat to walk to the Target to buy the hat that I needed. I was disappointed in myself. But as I read the Bible, and this business conference, it really helped narrow some things down for us because we've been doing this for 5 years, and they've given us tremendous advice. And there's a plan to make you successful at the level of success that you are looking for, financial success. Almost get to the point where you can let your office run 30 days without you. You can just be gone for 30 days, emergency contact only, and your office can run. We're not there at all. We need us every day. I was needed in court several days this week, and it was amazing, and it was an unusual week for me. At one case, I thought I needed to be there. My client's grandmother interjected at one point, stood up, and began to speak on his behalf. And the judge was so moved by her that he let her speak on his behalf. And I said, well, if you're going to speak, I'm going to let you speak. And I stood by and I listened to a 77-year-old woman make an impassioned plea on behalf of her grandson. And it was an amazing plea. Now, I began and said what I wanted. It took me like 5 minutes. And the judge seemed inclined to do what I wanted. And it was asking questions. But then the grandmother got up and she solidified it in a way I've never seen done. And it was two women, as woman judge and a woman grandmother, and they were talking back and forth. And it was amazing. At one point, I looked at the DA and I just said, I don't know what's going on here. This has never happened. And the DA, who had not objected yet, looked at me and said, I don't know what's going on either. And we sat there. In fact, we got what we want, which is, given my client's history at the time, was pretty amazing that the judge was even countenancing that. But I was glad that she did, because mental health and drug problems combined. But it was interesting to me. I was like, this this is fascinating. I didn't get to the outcome that I got to the outcome I wanted, but not the way that I wanted to get there, or that I had planned on getting there. I thought I did a tremendous job in the 5 minutes it took me to say what I had to say, because I really didn't want to talk about the facts, because the facts were not on my side at all. I got no good facts. This is the fifth time he's failed in another place. And that results in that I got nothing but failure. I just got nothing but a suggestion and some reasons and hope for compassion. And then the judge nodded, but then the grandmother got up and she gave the thing I didn't get, that I couldn't get, which was the heartfelt, impassioned speech of someone who said, I've been dealing with this for so long. And I was like, go ahead. Because I articulated where she was coming from, but I didn't know where she was coming from, if that makes any sense. I didn't know what it felt like to have that much disappointment in life and with someone else. So I got to thinking, and y'all have to know, it's packed in here. It's standing room only. If by standing room, you mean standing room. But, so here's where I got to. How do we handle disappointment? That's the real question, because we hear a lot, and this is going to be a short sermon because I don't really have the answer about how to handle disappointment. But what I do have are some thoughts about disappointment. When we consider our lives, people always used to say, have faith. Have faith, give and it shall be given. All of those things. And that's the way we live our lives. But we still end up with disappointment. Now, I think that when God told us to have faith on this faith walk, I think he understood that we were going to have to face disappointment. But at no point we hear about the end result. That is, if you pray and you believe, you will receive. We hear that process. And so we pray and we believe and we hope to receive the answer to the prayer or the answer about the thing that we were praying or whatever. We hope to receive that. But what happens when you don't? What happens when the answer to the prayer you've been praying doesn't? I mean, everybody that I know of who's faced the loss of a loved one's life, every Christian that I know of, and even the non-Christians will suddenly start calling on God. And I'm not mocking that. I'm just saying that everybody wants that level of hope and wants the outcome to be positive. And if you face the loss of a loved one, no doubt you prayed for that loved one not to pass. You prayed for an outcome to be avoided. You prayed for deliverance. You prayed for something. And you've also attended that loved one's funeral. And what do we have there? There's got to be a level of disappointment. You prayed for a relationship and it doesn't come to pass or doesn't work out. There's disappointment. And the Bible talks about, we have the examples of lady, Samson's mother, how she prayed and had been disappointed. We have many examples, many stories in the Bible of people who prayed and then they received that which they prayed. But then the Bible talks about some people will pray, but they'll never see what it is, the outcome. That to me has got to be a disappointment. I can't imagine going through my life praying and believing and working towards something, never to see it. That's a real sobering thought. I mean, that's a thing that we went through, or I went through at this business conference that I went to. I was like, wow, we've been doing this 5 years. Then I thought, man, I think I ought to be disappointed because I can't stay away from the office for 30 days. Emergency contact, nobody calling me. I'm not there yet. And I hear people saying how they're there and how they were doing well. And I'm like, man, I joined 2 years ago and I'm there. And I'm like, well, I joined 5 years ago. So I had to look and see What did I do to contribute to my disappointment? And I had to acknowledge that which happened. But I looked at the Bible and I was just curious, what does it really say about disappointment? And surprisingly, it says a lot, but it tells you about the other side. I didn't really find anything. I found some stuff in there that for me was not necessarily as comforting as I hoped it to be. Psalms 34, 17 through 19. Says, the Lord, he hears and delivers us from trouble, and he's near to the brokenhearted. All right, fantastic. That's beautiful. That gives me encouragement, but it doesn't stop me from being disappointed because the brokenhearted are, in fact, the brokenhearted. So they are currently disappointed. Psalms 55, 22. Cast your burdens on the Lord, and he'll, I wrote this down, and I can't even read it, but cast your cares on the Lord, and he sustains you. That's that word I have right there, sustains you. Okay. Thank you for sustaining me, but if keeping me where I wasn't disappointing, I wouldn't be casting my cares on you. You won't be swallowed up. You'll be marking time, if you will. You'll still be in the spot that you were, and he'll deliver you, which means that until that happens, I'm in the state of undeliveredness, if that makes any sense. And I hate being there. I don't know about y'all, but I just hate being in the state of undelivered. It's deliverable, but it has not yet been delivered. Psalms 147, chapter 3, 147:3 says, he heals the brokenhearted. Again, everyone hears that and they go, yay, he heals the brokenhearted. What I hear is there are people who are brokenhearted that need to be healed. And that's the issue. Like, I thought, were we not supposed to bypass the brokenheartedness condition? John 16, verse 33, Jesus said, in this world, this is Jesus talking, in this world you will have trouble, and in me you will have peace. That's great. Thank you. But I look at Lazarus's family, Jairus. Remember, Jairus' daughter died. She was raised. Lazarus, his family was saying, Jesus, if you'd only come, he wouldn't have died. So they had a state of disappointment all the way to the end. Now, I don't know anybody on this planet right now I've never met, spoken to, looked at, seen and heard testimony from someone who had a loved one resurrected. Ever. I've seen people resuscitated. They died on the table and they were resuscitated. Resuscitation can happen. I've seen that. I don't know anybody that's been resurrected. They was dead. They at the morgue. Oh, we got a phone call. They're back. I've seen stories of people where they said they declared them dead and they woke up on the, at the funeral, but they had not done any of the, the processing of the body, as it were. So I've never known anyone resurrected. I've known of people to be resuscitated. But what does it take? How are you supposed to be in the meantime? Well, first of all, I think we have to start with this proposition. Disappointment is as much a part of life as blessings are. And I think that we've been kind of pitched the idea of blessings. We're going to be blessed. We're going to be this. God delivers us. God sustains us. God cares for us, keeps us. All of these promises. And I look at that and I go, that's wonderful. But I also know people. I know someone, literally communicated with them just the other day, who has a life of disappointment. To the point, I remember once I actually had to intervene to try to get them help so that they wouldn't end this life. And I hadn't seen them and this person in over 30 something years, or 40 years, actually, well, at that point, 35 years. I hadn't seen or spoken to that person in 35 years. And I just happened to see something they posted on Facebook and had to work hard to try to keep that person from ending their life. And I remember when they called me from the whatever facility they ended up in, weeks later, the nurse called me and they were like, I'm like, first of all, how did y'all find me? Is the first point I want to know. And then they were like, well, we just wanted to know, and we wanted to, talk to you, talk to him, and and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, if I just want to let you know, I haven't talked to this man since 35 years. I know nothing about them and their life now. And we never communicated once after 1983. That was the last time I ever spoke to or laid eyes on that person. And yet there I was, the person who, along with someone else, intervened. As he told me when he talked to me, he said, hey, you know what happened? He goes, all I know is a knock at my door, and it was the police there. And they were like, we're here, and they took him to a hospital. And he was institutionalized, whatever they do when you're a suicide risk. And I thought, wow, I was a part of saving somebody's life. But I also thought I was a part of saving somebody's life. Like, I never knew what it did. I knew. I mean, I've known people who've committed suicide, but I just have never been in that point and even been able to talk to that person after the fact and find out that level of disappointment. And I wanted to know then. And I've been periodically when they've said things and I had posted stuff, we haven't talked since then. I oftentimes wonder, what do I say to somebody who's literally in active disappointment? Chin up. That's what we really tell folks. Hey, God's going to deliver you. When? You know what I'm saying? Just think about it. When am I getting delivered? How? I don't want that. I want this. I want to go back to the way things. Well, it's hard to tell somebody that at the point where it's probably not going to be the way it used to be. Well, I don't want that because I want it the way it used to be. So your solution for me is more disappointment. I'm disappointed to be where I am, and the deliverance that you say I'm going to get is really just going to be more disappointment because I'm not going to get back to where I wanted to be in the first place. You offer me nothing, and I thought about that, and I solicit some information from y'all, answers from you all, but when I look at the Bible. And I listened in those verses that I listened, there are a few more in there. I'll tell you this, nowhere in the Bible does it say just deal with it. That's one of the interesting things I noted. It didn't just say deal with it. It'll rain on the just and the unjust. I get that. So it's telling me it's going to happen. But he doesn't say, and I've heard people say, you got to faith it till you make it. And I'm like, well, that's just telling me to fake it till I make it and to come. And when I'm around people, how you doing? Blessed, and it's going all right. Because you don't want to have a negative. I used to always get, when I was younger, they used to tell me, the words of your mouth, the meditation of your heart, and what you say to it. And so always say the positive thing. And I remember that. And I would think, well, how would I know if somebody's in trouble if they are too afraid to say the negative because we're telling them that that's going to create? It's like, how am I going to create the thing I'm already in? You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm currently disappointed, but if I tell you I'm disappointed, I'm going to create the disappointment. Oh, you don't want to give life to that. You want to say the positive things. I'm like, oh, so what you're telling me you don't want to hear my bad news because it might bring you down, is what I took from that. Or you don't want to hear my bad news because you really don't have an answer. And I'm okay with you not having an answer, but perhaps you not having an answer makes you feel insecure because you don't have an answer. But we all get to that point where we're disappointed. Like I said, death. My mother passed away. Was I disappointed? I absolutely was. Every sermon I heard beforehand, I was listening for something that spoke life and told me it was going to be different. But the thing is, and the sad thing, I don't know if I ever said this publicly, I knew long before. I remember saying to my son, I don't think my mother's going to make it this year. This is before she was having problems. I actually used the word circling the drain, just to be totally honest. That's the word I said. But that was a while beforehand. So I kind of knew it. But I was disappointed nonetheless. And when it comes to the successes that you want to have in life, disappointment, people disappoint you, circumstances disappoint you, so many things. Sometimes you can be so disappointed, you know what you're disappointed in. Like, how you feel? I don't know if you've been around somebody who they just exude a negative energy, and it's just like, yeah, well, you tell them the sun is up, but you get skin cancer, and you're like, Jesus, that is a way of looking at it, isn't it? It's a bright day. Yeah, it's going to rain tomorrow. I'm like, God. You've had so much disappointment that you don't even want to speak hope because the idea of hope is in and of itself painful because you've had hope in the past and have not had it fulfilled. So you're back at disappointment. So it's easier to stay disappointed than it is to have that level of hope and faith. And you're a miserable human being when you're there. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 13. Take up the whole armor of God that you can withstand any evil in the evil day, and having done all, stand. And I looked at that and I thought about the armor. What does that mean? That means you're in combat. I don't know anybody happy in combat except crazy people. You know what I'm saying? There's one guy, I read a story of a guy who really was, I don't know if he was a serial killer or what he was, but he really talked about how he was he won awards too, how when he was in combat, all the crazy things he did, but he was into that life. He loved that violence, all of that. That was him. Other than that, nobody's happy in combat. Nobody's happy in war, but we're going to have war. And so I think the way to be, and this is the key thing here, I think that the way to be in disappointment is when you put on that armor, you are letting other people know that you're in combat right now. You know what I mean? Because you never see somebody in armor and think, I wonder what's going on in their life. Why the helmet? What's going on there, buddy? No, you going for war, aren't you? I am. So you don't got to keep it secret. I think you can let people know. And maybe it's not saying I'm going through and I'm disappointed. It might just be, I need assistance here. I need assistance now. And when you stand, because we look for this deliverance. I listened to a thing today, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and they were talking about something in physics. And they said that one of the guys, Newton, when he got to a point, it was like the three body problem. The sun and the moon and the earth, and it's different with the rotation. And there's a bunch of things about figuring out why the earth rotates the way that it rotates, and around the sun and the moon around the earth and the light. And when Newton got to a part that he could not answer, he simply said, well, that's the Lord corrects that. And then years later, another physicist came along, and Napoleon had asked that other physicist when he came up with the solution. He invented a new form of calculus. And when he got that new form of calculus that solved the problem, Napoleon asked him, what about God? He says, I had no need for that hypothesis. And they were joking, and they said, yeah, whenever you can't answer something, just say the Lord will know. The Lord did it. That's God's providence. And I thought, yeah, that bothers me. And it bothers me because it says you're not really having faith. You're just throwing out a phrase that you hope people will believe in, and not a true answer. And I think that the true answer with disappointment, how to be disappointed, is this: you have to recognize that disappointment will come, and that you are disappointed. I mean, and why? That's the key. Why are you disappointed? Because once you start asking yourself that question, you start to really work through the problem a little bit more. Meaning, and what I mean by that is this: when you think about what Jesus did with the woman at the well, and then when he talked to her, he asked her about, like, kind of, why are you there? He got to know her. When you look at, even when the Pharisees and Sadducees would question Jesus, he would say, he perceiving their hearts or perceiving their thoughts. He got into where they were. Don't just tell me where you are. I want to know how you got to where you are, because you're never going to get away from where you're not even going to be able to see your way out of this until you understand how you got yourself in there. And I don't mean you fell into it. It's a fault of yours, but how your brain got you, how your thoughts, how you ended up in that state of disappointment, because maybe you had faith in something you shouldn't have had faith in. Maybe you are reacting to something you see now that triggers you, but it has nothing to do with now. It has everything to do with something from the past. And this reminded me of the past. I have the negative feelings right now, and I see you, and I'm disappointed in you. No, you're not. What I just did, or what we've just had happen between us, does not generate that level of disappointment at all. You are dealing with, and you need to really get down into what disappointed you in the past. What did you not get over with in the past? And how does this trigger it? So you have to understand why you are where you are and why you are disappointed. Because as you begin to explore that's that inner workingness of you, because you can't even stand. It says, having done all, stand. Well, my glucose monitor is telling me, consistent with my wife being in here and knowing glucose monitor goes off always when I'm around my wife after I've eaten some things I shouldn't have eaten. And she just walked in here like literally 2 minutes ago. It hasn't gone off this entire time, never once. But and it does it at home, it does it wherever. She'll get in the car, hey Kurt, I'm like, really? I think it's a defect in the monitor, and I'm just sticking with that story. But that was funny to me because it happens all the time. But anyway, so I'm disappointed in my monitor. So, but my point is, I think part of doing all has got to be doing the introspection with you. And at that business meeting, the guy talked about it. He says sometimes he goes, it's easier to do the work on the stuff that you know how to do than to do the work on the stuff that you need to do. And I mean, that's effectively the paraphrase. But because if you're really good at something, rather than deal with the parts that you're not good with that are making you upset, making you frustrated, you can get lost in the work of what you're doing, the grind. You're working over here doing this, like, well, I'll just double down. I'll just work harder. I'll work on this. It's like, no, that ain't your problem. You're great at that. You could hire somebody to do that for you, and you could know when they're doing it and when they're not doing it because you're so good at it. You could just look at it and be like, no, you're not doing that right. Do a better job. And then you could spend your time over here. So I guess my point in saying this is, because I've been dealing with disappointment, the thought of this for a minute. We have to understand how we got there. And before we start standing and I'm just going to stand here and just wait for something. Like, no. Soldiers don't stand. Soldiers go to war. You put on the armor of God, you going to war. You're not going out there to stand in the field while they shooting. I got the armor on. I can just stand here now. And this armor's so good that the darts will. No, man, you got to do something. You're a soldier. And whether your the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, as the Bible says. So you're going to have to pray. You're going to have to get around people who are there. It doesn't mean that the answer will come as soon as you start doing those things. But it's a way to be when you're in that state of disappointment. As I said, started where I was. I know where I want to be. But until I get there, I'm not there. And I'm not where I wanted to be. I'm not where I was. I'm not there where I want to be. I'm in that state of, we'll call it disappointment, but how to be in that state. And I don't think it necessarily means that we have to throw caution to the wind, be carefree, I'm just going to pray. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for this other person because they're the reason I'm disappointed. No, maybe you need to pray for you. Maybe you're the reason you're disappointed. It could just be that, man, they're not listening to me. Well, maybe it's a time you should be listened to. So your disappointment may not even be valid. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, and because that's the thing, we tend to validate everyone's disappointment, and I'm not invalidating it, but I'm saying until we evaluate it, we don't know whether it's even a legitimate disappointment. You're disappointed about people letting you down, but these are the people you should have been depending upon in the first place. Why did you depend on them? Well, I depended on them but why did you depend on them? Well, they could do the job. Thousands of strangers could do that same job. So why did you depend on them? And then you start getting to the point of why you're disappointed. Well, you know what it was is I had done stuff for them in the past. And because I'd done things for them in the past, I was expecting them to do something for me. And when they let me down, I'm disappointed. I'm like, oh, but did you tell them in the past, I'm doing this for you now, but understand at some point in the future, without you knowing it, I'm going to depend upon you. And if you don't do what I want you to do at that time, I'm going to be disappointed in you because I thought, because if you told me on the front end, they'd have been people who, hey, Kirk, do this. No, I don't want anything from you. You give it to me, there's going to be a condition. You haven't told me what it is yet, but I know one day, you let me down. I've had something, man, you let me down. I'm like, how did I let you down? Well, I thought you would have done X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, X, Y, and Z was never in, I never even thought to do that. I didn't know that was required of me. Well, I just figured you'd have thought about it. I'm like, well, if you figured out and thought about it, I figured you'd have told me about it. Instead of you told me about your disappointment, but you didn't tell me about the expectation. Well, this happened a while back when I had done X. Well, you should have told me then that this came with a price because I might not have accepted it. I might have, now you know what, I'll do without that because I know how you're going to be. And I have said that to people. I literally said, I don't want that because I know how you're going to be. Like, what does that mean? I'm just saying, you're going to want something more from me. And you're going to be disappointed in me because I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you now, I will not do it later. So now that we know that, do you still want to do this for me? And I say it in a nice way, but I'm just like, I'm being real. And because when I give to you, I don't expect you to give back to me. It'd be nice if you did, But how can I be disappointed in you if you don't? When I was supposedly giving to you. Do you understand? I gave to you. And now I'm disappointed that you didn't give back to me. No, you loaned to me and were expecting repayment at some time in the future. Or you're disappointed in people that you should have depended on because where you could have gotten your support was from someone that you may not have esteemed that much. I don't want to deal with them. Why not? I just don't like them. I don't like their ways are funny. Well, you might need to learn their ways. Their ways may not be funny. Their ways just may be ways that are different than the way you do it. But you have disappointment. So I think as part of that doing all to not be disappointed, we're going to have to explore our disappointments, because sometimes I genuinely believe disappointment is really you just not seeing things clearly. I mean, think about that. Death, I got that. There's a life or death option. I'm disappointed that this person died. I got that. I wanted this job and I didn't get that job, and I'm disappointed. I got that. I wanted my child to do X, Y, or Z, or to be A, B, and C, or to not be with this person or whatever. And that didn't happen. I got that. But then my question becomes, but what was the relationship like with the child? How did y'all interact? You just told them my way or the highway? Because, hey, when you were told my way or the highway, what'd you do? You got on the highway, didn't you? Yes, you did. So your child is just like you, is what you're telling me. But I just, it's different. No, it's not different. It's the same. It's just that you want to validate your disappointment as opposed to investigating and realizing you shouldn't be disappointed. Or the thing you ought to be disappointed in is in your lack of communication, and improve on that, work on that, mend that bridge. But too often we cite these scriptures as a way of affirming people in their disappointment. And I say, I don't know that you should be disappointed at all times. I don't know that. But when you are, and that's the key point, when you are, explore it, get into it, understand it, do that all. We're working out our own salvation, exploring the situation. Don't reach the conclusions that this other person or this situation has done you bad. I lost my job. I'm disappointed. Yes, but you now are free from the thing. Somebody has been asking you to go somewhere, do something, and you now have lost this job or lost an opportunity or whatever. And you're like, man, I was depending on that. Yeah, but look at what has been opened up to you. Because we look at not getting something as a loss, and I'm like, it can be an opportunity. Not every denial is debasing and devastating. It's literally an opportunity. I wanted a job with an insurance defense firm before I went to New York. I interviewed for that job. A friend of mine who's a neighbor to this is a neighbor of mine now. We were friends in the DA's office. I go to the interview, and I had a friend who worked in the office. I thought for sure I was going to get that gig. I got a friend that works in there. That friend didn't advocate for me at all. And I think Suzette was like, what kind of friend is that? And I was like, yeah, what kind of friend is that? And I was like, I can't believe you didn't go to bat like Kirby. Kirby's the man. And my other friend, who I work in the DA's office with, I'm like, I'm trying to not use the N word. I was like, Negro, how'd you go apply for that job? He's like, because they had us come in on one door and go out on another door. So we would never see who was coming in. But I just happened to say, I'm like, yo, man, what you doing here? He goes, what you doing here? I'm like, he goes, man. And he said, I would come to you for trial advice. So it's kind of funny that I came in to get the job. Now, he got the job, by the way. I want to add that he got the job. And I was disappointed. We were trying to buy a house. I was ready for this job. I was like, everything said Kirby is getting this job. Friend on the inside. The people who I knew that were applying, I've been trying cases longer than you. All of that. It was a lock. And I was locked out. And I was disappointed in my friend, in my other friend, and in the people who made the decision. Because I thought y'all suck too. You wouldn't know talent if it was talking to you, because it was talking to you. But then we go to New York. We couldn't buy the house that we were trying to buy. More disappointment. They're like, well, your student loan was late. I'm like, you are hitting me up on a student loan? Bruh, seriously. Everything only debt I had was a student loan. And you gonna tell me a late payment is keeping me out? I was mad at them. When we were going to close. They're like, there's been new development. I'm like, well, it can't be that new. And it's a student loan payment. I'm like, well, that has definitely been in existence for some time now. And I missed that payment So that historically was a fact. It didn't just happen. So I was I would say bitterly disappointed. We had gone to the house. It was over off South Deshaun Road. It was the former model home. We walked through. I mean, we had visions of rapture. I mean, it's like the song. Just, oh my God, we knew it. And there we were. No new job, no new house, no friend rallying to my help. And then some school calls from New York, and off we go. So the disappointment that I felt, I needed to reevaluate, because we've been praying for doors to open. And we were so busy thinking that doors open meant all doors open. But no, in order for the doors that we wanted to open, some doors had to close. You understand? So now I understood that these doors needed, but that understanding, by the way, didn't come until after I was in the other door. And I was like, man, let me think about life here. Because they sure were some crappy friends. And I was like, wait a minute. If it had worked out and I had got that job, how would I look getting a job? And I wouldn't have left that job. I'd have stayed there. I mean, we almost didn't go to school because I was going to run for office. I was like, no, don't go, baby. I mean, it was all of that. And then lo and behold, it was like, no, this is what you needed to be disappointed and then explore why you were disappointed. And I was disappointed because I had a plan for how I thought my life should go. I had a plan for where I thought I should end up. And I had figured it all out. But the problem is, how does my wife become a doctor unless we go to the place where the school is? You understand? I mean, even the school we look at in Georgia was down in the Medical College of Georgia. That's in Augusta. You know, you can't commute from Augusta to where was the office at? The office was over near Northlake. Augusta to Northlake to La Vista Road. I mean, was that possible? No, it wasn't going to work. So disappointment, I think, when it comes down to how to be, you've got to explore it. And you got to explore why you felt disappointed. You got to explore if you should even be disappointed. You got to explore, are there other opportunities that I've been saying no to that I now might have to reconsider a yes to? Because sometimes that's the answer. You know what? I was thinking this wasn't going to work out, but now that I look at it, and why was I saying no to begin with? Because I didn't want to deal with certain people. Okay, life is not about dealing with people you like to deal with. You know, it's just not about that. If that was life, then I tell you right now, yeah, I would be at home all the time because I don't deal with a lot of people. You ask me to go out, if you say, Kirby, can you come meet us out? Even if I love you, if I want to come, if it means me leaving the house after 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the evening, it ain't happening. 5:30 to 7 o'clock is the magic hour. If you don't get me by then, baby, I gotta love you dearly. There needs to be something like this person is in town and they're not coming back. Then I'm like, oh, okay, we'll go. And then how far away is it? That tells me how long it takes me to drive back from there. Because I don't mind driving an hour to get to you, but if I got to drive an hour back when it's over, I'm not going to come because who wants to drive an hour back? I mean, that's just how my mind works. So, but I know now that opportunities for me opened up when I was like, Kirby, you need to go out there and do stuff. Otherwise, I'll come home, sit on the sofa, get the remote control in a heartbeat. That's my position. Home, remote control, laptop on my lap, doing work, watching TV, talking to Suzette, talking to Cara. And whoever, and Gabrielle will wander in, and people kind of just come in and go out. It's like a sitcom. And I'm sitting there. But then I got disappointed with that. This is disappointing. Need to be doing more. Should be more successful. Should have more money. Should be nothing. Should we have more friends? You know, have we been good friends with people? We don't really go out. We're invited we probably invited 4 people to our house to eat since we've been there. We've been invited out a bunch of times and have never returned the favor. Not because we don't, but because we just be so tired. It's just like, oh my God. Even when we do go out, we buy the food on the way back. Like, what, they coming over? Go buy Mo Better Chicken. I'm going by Mo Better Chicken. And Suzette tells them how hard she labored over the Mo Better. I labored hard to fry this chicken. And I'm like, yeah, I stood in line like a soldier, you know, but I kind of navigate my disappointment sometimes with humor. But I'm drawing to a close. What I'm saying to you is this. We see the promises of God for the outcome once you land on the other side. We see that. It will work. But there are times, but that time between start and landing is a time of uncertainty. And in that time of uncertainty, I think it's time for reflection. Having done all, and some of that, and that all includes me looking at me listening to God, me trying to say, Lord, is this Your will or my will? And even I struggle with that because people say you got a call on your life. I'm like, well, that just seems like like you don't got one. You do what you want to do. I got to do something special because there's a call on me. Like I didn't ask for this call, so I've been snatched up and I got to go do something. I mean, if y'all only knew how much I did not ever want to be in this seat right here, you don't even know. And even though I'm in front of crowds when I speak, as TV and all the other stuff, but I want to be there. I wasn't disappointed when I came to preaching. I just didn't want to do it. But the thing that got me was you got a call. Can you imagine that, being disappointed at the idea that that you've been called by God? That's an amazing, not disappointed, but disappointed what that means. Like, what does that mean? Do I have to not do this? Do I gotta walk a certain way? I'm gonna be, oh my God, I hope my dad's gonna watch this and I'm gonna say it, and the people that are watching, y'all might click off. I don't know. But does that mean like when I go to the barbecue restaurant, I can't get a beer? Because the preacher had a beer. I'm like, but my cousin got married, my brother-in-law's son, so I guess he's my nephew. He got married, and we were at a church in the basement of an Episcopal church, and the priest, whatever you call him, the Episcopal church, with his collar on, was dancing with his wife while drinking a beer. And I said, if a man with a clerical collar can dance in a church while drinking a beer, I can have a beer at the barbecue spot. So that kind of lowered my standard for the call on my life, because not to say that I was that much of a dedicated beer drinker, but it was important to me nonetheless, because I just thought Christians got to live that Christian life. You got to live that Christian life. And I thought, well, no, that Christian life is the life that other Christians have told you you're supposed to live. And if you don't live that life, they're going to be disappointed. And I thought to myself, but I don't see the proof in the Bible of what you said. Jesus turned water into wine. And I'm like, so, Lord, they ran out of wine, Jesus. So like, don't worry about it, but I got something for you. This is JC year 1. And I'm like, okay. So, but I had a teacher in law school, in college, tell me that he didn't turn water to wine, turn water into grape juice, because his father had been an alcoholic, and he associated alcohol with pain, and therefore it shaped his scripture. But I'm saying, if you just took the time to understand why you're where you are, then you might realize that some of the disappointments that you have aren't disappointments. They're opportunities. Obstacles present opportunities to how to get around them, how to get over them, how to get through them, how to stand while that obstacle exists. And then it serves as a testimony after the fact to someone else who's going through it. So you can say, let me tell you, I was once where you were. And I'm not going to say that you're going to end up where I am. I'm not going to say that you're going to get there, but I can tell you right now how to be while you are where you are. Because right now you're disappointed. Right now you're frustrated. Here's some things I would encourage you to do for you. Because I can't tell, if you tell me what to believe, you have to know how my mind is. If you tell me what to believe and what to think, I'm going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to try to prove you wrong and to find the exceptions to the rule. And I don't need that. That's not beneficial, but that's just how my mind works. Because I'm like, is it right? Is it right all the time? Does it work for you? Or you just telling me something? You just telling me that because you don't know what the answer is. That's all that goes through my head. But if you tell me, look, I tell you right now, I know that you're disappointed. I know you're going through. In this time, think about these things. Examine and explore. For me, I now have to do it. I commit to do it. I tell people, if you tell me about myself, even if I disagree, I will examine it. I question my beliefs every day. And that's a weird thing to say in church, but I do. Why do you believe what you believe? You ever stop and think about that? You ever just sit down and read the Old Testament and then read the New Testament and go, huh? Part of my old sermon that's on the bed at the house does involve the idea that, interesting change here. But when Cain killed Abel, God didn't kill Cain. He instead protected Cain. He cursed. He said, you're going to have to struggle getting food now. The land, the ground you're going to struggle with. He told him, that's the curse on you. You're going to struggle. It won't, you'll eat thistles and thorns is what he says. And I was like, wow. But Cain said, when I leave here, they're going to kill me. And he said, I'll put a mark about you so they won't kill you. So he didn't kill him. But the law that we came about, if you look at the Old Testament law, how many things did the law say that you could kill people? It's a bunch of them. How is that possible? Cain killed before the law, so he shouldn't be punished. He was killed and protected. If you look at the curse that came when Adam, when they sinned, the original sin, if you will, he said the ground, it was very similar. If you listen to the thing, he said, cursed is the ground. But what Adam was told he was going to have to do, which is toil, the soil, the same thing Cain was told. You got to toil with the soil. You're going to eat thistles and thorns. Very similar things, but he didn't kill him. And I was like, wow, they disappointed God, if you will. And the punishment wasn't killing. The punishment wasn't retribution. The punishment wasn't something designed to destroy them. He left them in a position where they were able to repent and to live and to grow. But when someone disappoints us, do we do the same? Do we extend them that grace to say, I'm mad at you, but I'm not going to destroy you. I'm not going to make it so that you can't succeed. I'm not going to do that. And then when Jesus came and he caught the people, when the woman was caught in adultery and they were going to stone her, he said, well, let he who's without sin cast the first stone. I thought about that. And what he basically said was, listen, historically, I've been in this position. If you really think about it, Adam could have just smote him down and made a new one. Cain could have just killed him. Adam and Eve had Seth. After the fact, we can replace old Cain. No, I've been here before. And I didn't kill those people. I left a way for them. And now I am the way for you. And then he says, but I'm going to let you know, if you're sinless, if you're like me, then you can do it. And they knew, we're not even like you. We're not even, not that they recognized that he was, that he was God, but I'm just saying the point is, they recognized that they were not perfection. They had been disappointments to God in the broad sense of the word, disappointments. But with facing that reality of their humanity, they could not cast the first stone. And then we look at how it progressed to the greatest commandment. And here's the crazy thing about the greatest commandment. I know it's a weird, interesting change here. Do you know we fight more about the commandment to love than we fought about the commandment to kill? There was a crowd ready to kill. But how many crowds have you seen gathered to love anybody? You think about that? You ain't never seen a love crowd. Like the people that you'll go there if they're going to get something, but you any crowd gathered to love someone. We see that you have failed and you have fallen, and we're here to love you. That's the greatest commandment, to love. We've never seen that. We don't even sit in the house of God. Judgment, God's going to get you. You don't want to do that. You don't want to speak that into existence. You don't want to fail God, fail whatever. You don't want to fail. And I'm like, we never have a love thing here. We don't just say, hey, man, I'm just here to tell you you're doing the best you can do. I hope you improve. But right now, I see that you have improved. You've grown 1/16 of an inch, whatever. You've improved. You did 15 bad things all your life, every day. Today you did 14. I just want to praise you. I just want to say, bless the Lord that you have made us some introspection. We don't do that. We don't encourage. We speak of the negative. We speak out of our disappointment that people didn't act the way that we thought they should act, or we thought that God demanded that they act, or the way that we've acted. And I'd like to do what those people do, but I didn't get to do it. And if I'm going to be miserable, I want you to be miserable. But we never love them. We never love them right. We never love them just to say, hey, I'm glad you're trying. I see you're in flight from where you wanted to be to where you don't want to be. And you're in the flight, you're on the disappointment airplane. And I just want to tell you that as you're there, you might experience a little turbulence. You might experience some things. I'd encourage you to engage in some self-reflection. I would encourage you to consider whether these obstacles are opportunities. I would encourage you to consider the fact that God has delivered you. I would encourage you to recognize that there are times that people passed away and there were this absolute, I need A and I got B. Understand that. But when you got B, guess what? You're still here. Opportunities still exist for you. So, and I don't mean that in a trite, well, that's a truism. I mean that in a real sense of the word, that which you feared was ruining you. I mean, I know how I was going to be when my mother passed away. I was like, I know how my dad was going to be. I was like, how is he going to take this? But we're all still here. We're all still here. As is everybody who's ever experienced that. Well, unless those who couldn't have it. So there you have it. I think that how we deal with disappointment is more than just simply quoting the scriptures that says we're going to win, because like I told you, I have yet to meet a resurrected person. I've only met resuscitated people. I've never seen that. I've seen one woman who was in a wheelchair who's walking now, and I saw the video on YouTube, and I knew her when she was in a wheelchair. That's about it. That's the most miraculous thing I've ever seen in my life. I've seen other stuff that I go, oh, well, I take that back. It was the car kind of going through my sister. when I was a kid, but at the time I didn't perceive it as a miracle. I just perceived it. You know, it was just I didn't understand it. I understand it now. But I definitely know disappointment. We are good buddies. we are familiar friends. Like, here they come. Here comes disappointment over here right now. And you ever get disappointed in a time when you're thinking you should be really happy? You ever had that happen? Just like you think about something like, oh, man, I was doing so good. And then I thought about that. And then you get into a spiral and you forget about the successes that you're having. You forget about the blessings that you got. You forget about the opportunities that you've been given. You forget about all of that. And your world becomes the disappointment. And it's like you can't even see things but from that bubble of disappointment. And I'm like, no. Put on that armor. Cut through that wall. Take a peek. There's more beyond this. So I think the way to be in disappointment, if you're at that point where you're like, I can't even have hope anymore because if I get one more hope dash, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think it involves hope at that point. I think you can legitimately say, I'm too scared, too hurt, too whatever to hope. I think that's fair to say. I absolutely do. Because if you feel it, why not say it? I know, don't put that in the universe. It's in my heart. And as I thought in my heart, if you've done it in your heart, what? You've done it in real life, right? So in my heart, I'm disappointed. In my heart, I'm angry. I remember once I yelled at God. And that's funny for me. I mean, I didn't just yell. I told him about himself. I went off on God when I was in law school. And then I had to do the introspection and realize the problem was me because I wasn't studying. I got a final exam, and that's all I got. I didn't study till final exam time. I got the answer right, but I didn't know about being graded on the curve. I say, oh, so you can be right, but still be wrong. You know, you can say, what is this? Everybody here say this is a book. That's a C. It's a journal. That's a C+. It's a book with a faux leather skin made on, this type of stock paper with lined pages with a ribbon between the middle, stapled in the middle with binding. That's the A paper. We've all described the same thing. I was getting the C in law school because I'm like, it's a book. What are we talking about? And I had to yell at God. And then after I finished yelling, he was like, you done? I was like, yeah, I'm done now. What'd you do? Well, I asked those tough questions, Jesus. What did I do? What I did was, what did you not do? I did not study. And then when I studied, you know what happened? My grades went up. Isn't that a crazy thing? Go figure. I was suddenly doing amazing because I had to do the thing that I thought, I'm so blessed, I don't got to study. What kind of stupid thought is that? Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily my thought, but I just figured I had been so blessed by God with my intellect that I could do it. And as a friend of mine who was a member of Mensa, which is the top 4% of intellectuals in the world, as he said to me, Kirby, we're all smart here. And I was like, wow, that's just painful. I mean, that's like being 7 feet tall, and you think you dominating the universe in basketball, then you go to a basketball camp with 7-footers, and you're like, well, look at it. We all 7 feet, aren't we? What else you got, player? Nothing. I can't dribble. And I had to learn how to dribble. So anyway, I just say that to you, to say that my point in all of this, in the two joined sermons together, is know yourself, know your reasons. It's okay to be honest about it. But how you are in disappointment, I think at a minimum, have an expectation that you won't always be disappointed. I don't know how you're going to get out, but it won't last forever. Trouble don't last always. I mean, I don't see a way out. You don't got to see a way out. You coming out on the other side. There's going to be an end point. I'm just telling you. If someone dies, well, now I'll have the rest of my life without that person. Bruh, that's humanity. Everybody that cried 150 years ago is not here today to tell you about it. Why? Because they died. And you know what? Somebody who was praying for them not to die lived on and then died. And somebody who prayed about them not to die lived on and then died. And now here you are. Hell, I don't want mine to die. Well, that's not possible. It's going to happen. So deal with it, but not in the hardcore way, but just to understand that is the nature of the system that we are in, that God has placed us in. So don't get disappointed about stuff that, bro, that just has to happen. I'm disappointed that it's raining. Well, rain happens. I'm disappointed that we had loss. Well, you can't have gain in some if there's no loss. Loss and gain happen. Understand how to be. That's the point I'm making to you. Understand how you are and why you got there. And I don't think we have to reaffirm ourselves with recitations of biblical verses that give us fanciful reasons to believe that things will work out when we serve a substantive God who provides substantive solutions to our actual lives. And that's it. Hope y'all heard something good. Kirby Jr. signing off.